All right, everybody, we're going to now get started. I want to thank everybody one more time for joining our US chapter of our Masterclass. For the past few years, our team has been traveling endlessly and speaking with executives in the workplace real estate space, and really appreciating the learnings that we've been able to accumulate over time, and speaking with the top executives in this space, speaking with our current and potential customers about what they're really doing to move into this hybrid world, right? And it's been very exciting, and we've learned so much. And of course, Smart Spaces has a solution that really helps shift companies and huge corporations, Fortune 500 corporations, into a hybrid workplace environment, right? And our award-winning solution is all over the U.S. now, and in over 30 different countries. Sorry, and we've actually been recognized by IDC and Gartner as well. So we've been adopted by future and Fortune 500 companies. So it's very exciting, and some of the biggest players in that excitement are joining me today. So it's very exciting to be able to be joined by Dinesh Malkani, our CEO and founder of Smart Spaces. In 5 years with Smart Spaces, it's become the global leader in digital workplace solutions, smart building technology as well. And prior to Smart Spaces, Dinesh was actually the president of Cisco India. And alongside of Dinesh is Jason McAloom, our vice president of global sales. He's just one of the leading sales executive in the U.S. for workplace technology field. He's worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies and continues to build his extensive portfolio with the biggest enterprise deals known to Smart Spaces today. And then again, myself, I'll be moderating this event. My name is William Abreu, and I'm the business development consultant here at Smart Spaces. So any questions that you guys may have, please feel free to type them in below in the chat. We'll be answering them throughout the presentation, and then we'll actually have a Q&A at the end to make sure that we get all those questions sorted. Just a little housekeeping. I want to make sure that I let you guys know we're going to be doing this is the quick introduction. Then we're going to go into a presentation about what our learnings are from the space, and then we're going to go ahead and open up to Q&A discussion towards the end. So very excited to start, and without further ado, I'd love to open the floor to Dinesh Malkani, our founder and CEO.
All right, super. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for joining the US chapter session, right? This is the first of 3 that we're going to be doing over the next 1 week. And really what we wanted to do was, we got a lot of feedback, we got a lot of data, and we want to put together our learnings and share with you what really is happening in the hybrid workplace, right? So I'll really get started. By the way, what you're going to see is data sum total of everything that's happening around the world, with large focus on what we've seen our clients in the US, right? So I've broken it down to about 7 or 8 very key learnings that we have. The first one is that one of the biggest factors of why people are coming back to office now is to really collaborate and build connections. And I know there've been surveys, there've been a lot of articles, but we have real data today, right? If you look at the data here, we're seeing all the way from Jan through May. And of course, we've got week 1 data in June that is again continuing that hockey stick, right? People are really coming back. And if you really look at it, these are the total transactions that are happening on the system. These are just bookings that people are making for desk. And, look at this curve here, right? For the people that are coming back, almost everybody seems to be booking meeting rooms. That's a great indicator. And by the way, the sample size we used was around 200,000 users, right? They're booking rooms, they're looking for collaboration spaces. That just tells you that one of the biggest reasons that they're coming back is actually to build those connections. We find the ability for, we're seeing people searching for their colleagues. Typical meeting sizes are ranging from 2 people all the way to 4 and 5. Some percentage are at home, some percentage are in the office. but clearly a lot of activity. And if I was to compare this activity with what was happening before COVID, we were not seeing the utilization of the rooms to be as high as we're seeing it right now. So just a very data-oriented sort of structure around the fact that people want to collaborate. And it's interesting. So we looked at all of the client base we had, and we asked them a single question. We asked the employees that work there, right? Why do you come back to work? Obviously, there are multiple reasons, but the first was, I want to come back because I firstly want to check where my colleague is. If my colleagues are coming back, if I get nudged saying that, you know what, today I've got Willie and Jason coming back, or next week on Wednesday, Willie and Jason are going to be back, I'm going to use that opportunity to come back, because that's the day that I want to engage with them. That's the day I want to have conversations. The other thing we're finding is around not just work, right? Because please understand that, a lot of people now have habits, and, they've picked up new things in the pandemic. A lot of people have pets, etc. And they really connect with like-minded people. So the ability to create these groups within the office is something which is being utilized pretty significantly right now. So people are wanting to connect with, we have customers that form pet groups as an example, and all of a sudden we found that the activity levels on the pet groups were very high, right? People wanted to get support from each other. Many, people had kids during the pandemic, and so obviously, they wanted to know what was going on there and sort of wanted to build those connections. So clearly, the utilization on that was also very high, right? Also, I think what was happening is that when people think of collaboration, many of them think of social connections, but many of them think of learning opportunities, particularly in the new employees that are joining in. The big reason they want to come back is because they felt that, yes, it was pretty productive working from home, but they were not getting that learning opportunity. They were not getting that face time, right? So they're also the ones that are on the lookout, looking for good learning opportunities. You'll find as I progress through the slides that even the events that companies started to organize, the free food notion was there in the beginning, and I think that kind of went away because that wasn't interesting anymore. But clearly, every time there was the opportunity to sit with their teams or with their managers and get an opportunity to learn, that turned out to be, in their definition, one of the better collaboration experiences and their ability to build connections. So this is really learning number one. And I think this is a very positive way of thinking of how to bring your teams back and deliver the experience that you have in the workplace. Now, it's not just about what the people want to do. Then it comes down to the space, because at the end of the day, is your space ready to accommodate this level of collaboration? Because another finding we're finding is that many of the clients are now starting to say, I'm running out of meeting rooms. I may have many desks, but I'm actually running out of collaboration areas. And so the ability to reconfigure your spaces because you have data is also something that, we're finding a lot of people that did not struggle with that problem maybe a couple of months ago are starting to see that now, right? And this is a great opportunity because, as you get more and more data, you'll find you maybe don't need those many desks. Maybe you do need the two-seater collab areas, because another thing I think what's important is that people are meeting in smaller groups, right? So I think that information becomes very useful, but this is an area to zoom in on the people side of the strategy, as well as the office side of the strategy and how you reconfigure those spaces, right? Also, this was interesting, right? But this is the latest data. We found that January, it was pretty light, and then April, it kind of started to pick up. But if you look at May, there was a big surge. There was a big surge of people getting back. Of course, Fridays continue to be the most challenging days, right? Because all through you will find, and actually we were really surprised because Mondays have improved, and maybe it's just review meetings companies are having or other things, but it used to be a problem with Monday and Friday. Now I think the challenge is Friday. And by the way, this is just for the US data, but many of you that may be looking at global offices, we're finding the same issue globally as well, right? Many companies have tried different strategies, but clearly we're finding that Mondays tend to be kind of getting better. Friday is the one to be able to solve. Now, what's interesting is that if you look at the, we obviously are thinking, we're working with companies that are really adopting hybrid and flexibility, right? We also look at the data coming out, which is showing that truly people are working in a hybrid manner. If you look at the percentage of people that come every day, that's actually very low. It's usually between the 2 and 3 days that people are choosing. They're doing some forward planning because the data here shows that just from a booking, so we just wanted to look purely at booking, right? You see the hockey stick, right? It's surging upwards. And by the way, it's happening globally, right? It's a pretty similar phenomenon. But if you look at the US in particular, it's been steadily kind of rising up. And so people are working in that hybrid manner, which I think is very healthy as well, right? Because I know that that's where organizations want to go. It wasn't great when everything was remote. Probably wasn't great when everybody was expected to come back, but this middle ground, and I think the data is showing us that it is trending and moving in the right sort of direction, right? Now, one of the sort of learnings was also that while people come back to collaborate, we have to understand that a lot of employees made lifestyle changes during COVID, right? And this is something consistent when we talk to our client base, right? Is that the lifestyle, basically changes typically were health related. Many people took up cycling. Many of them bike to work, and particularly in smaller cities, well, they bike to work. But the question is, have you made the changes in your workplace? We're finding a lot of our clients making those changes. Bicycle racks getting put inside of the offices, whether it's negotiating with the building owner, whether it's making space in your own office location. People bought expensive cycles, many of them costing $8,000-$10,000, right? Which is pretty amazing. But people invested in it, and they missed that morning 1 hour ride that they were used to. But hey, why not cycle to work? I think Europe had that trend. I mean, I've been to Copenhagen on a number of occasions, and it's interesting, but a big percentage cycle to work. And so being able to support some of these lifestyle changes, like supporting the whole cycling sort of surge that happened, or, we're working with customer. I visited this customer in Charlotte, right? And they have a massive building downtown Charlotte. And, they are putting in parking, and within parking, one of the realization was that, well, we need now to think about EV chargers, because a lot of people got EV cars. And remember, they've moved out of the city. So they may be commuting 50, 60 miles coming in. So 50, 60 miles coming in and going out. When they come in, the ability for them to charge their car becomes important. So the early days, this was a big learning for a lot of companies, saying, because people started to complain and said, I drive all the way and I can't charge my car. And that's a big problem for me, right? There was also this other interesting phenomenon about couples. They get together on a Sunday night, Sunday evening, and they plan. Basically a lot of feedback was given to us that they sit together and say, okay, so which days are you going in versus which days am I going to go in, right? And so the ability to give them the flexibility, the ability to give them, supporting their lifestyle choices, but giving them the flexibility, I think becomes hugely important, right? So people are starting to plan for the week or the month or even few months out, because our booking data shows us, or our scheduling data shows us, that sometimes we're seeing bookings all the way, or schedules done all the way till July, right? At least till end of July. That's kind of 1.5 months out. So planning cycles have definitely increased. And one of the reasons is people at home want to discuss with each other, right? Food choices, you all know about the plant-based movement and many other things. People are eating healthy food, but are you supporting that choices at the workplace? Food has become expensive. And so some of our clients, what they started to do was, they said they realized this problem, that some people don't want to come back because it's just expensive. We're not getting the food choices that we have been used to over the last 2.5 years. And so how do you support that, right? Introducing newer kind of food choices at the office, but also negotiating offers with, so we've got some customers that have negotiated offers with the food providers around the precinct, because they're also looking for business, but making sure you have these offers and then obviously making them known through technology to your employees, I think becomes very critical. The same thing is for gyms. Many companies are building exercise facilities within their office location, or at least they're negotiating well with gyms that may be around so that people during lunchtime or post work or before work can carry on doing that. Standing desk, I mean, I got so used to standing and working through the pandemic. If I go to work and if I don't have the same thing, I just think it hits productivity. Now it's an investment, but remember, it's a very small investment for the ability to make the employee more productive. Doing lifestyle choice analysis has been a big driver for employee satisfaction. It's been a big driver saying my employer cares, and these are changes as workplace leaders or people that are concerned about basically their employees coming back. This becomes a big part of what you may want to think about, because these were just phenomenal learnings, and we heard this from almost all the client base that we have, right? I think the other thing which has been sort of now fairly well grounded, but at the same time, many companies have done basically a lot of work, is understanding the personas of the teams that they have, right? In this case, Mandy, recent college grad, lives in the city, has 3 roommates. And you can imagine with 3 roommates on Zoom, that kind of gets a little bit stressful. And so Mandy likes to go to the office. Mandy likes to go to office. Her ideal schedule is 4 days in the office, 1 day work from home, and uses a scheduler to really kind of figure out and plans her time out. To her, improves the level of satisfaction, and of course lives in the city, so commute becomes easier. It's absolutely a known fact now that people with less commutes come more to the office versus the ones that have longer commutes. And so let's talk about Maria, right? And she lives 45 minutes. She has a 45-minute drive. She's got her own home office, which means she has a room to be able to do works and benefits from the 2 days in office, 3 days work from home. But what's important for Maria to choose her days has become very critical, right? So as we surveyed and interviewed our customers, and that's where we picked the 3 most common personas, that when the persona of Maria wants to come back, it's to collaborate. So knowing who else is coming in, and sometimes even making sure that nudging out the people to say, hey, I'm going to be in the office, and kind of figuring out how every time she goes back, that becomes a collaborative experience. I think that's been huge as well. And it just makes Maria more productive. It makes her more happy. She has no time to waste, and it balances her time and life out pretty well. The other is an example of Mike, and Mike kind of lives in the suburbs, right? Single parent, 2 children, got a responsibility, benefits from the work from home more than in the office. But that one day when Mike comes to the office, wants to make the most of it, right? So making sure rooms are available, making sure that, there is collaboration happening, making sure that he's able to work with basically with the team, and the ability to fluctuate month to month. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, look at your organization, form the scenarios, and the scenarios keep changing, right? And so the work that goes into it becomes super critical. But while you think about the people, you've got to match it to what does your workplace look like? Does your workplace support? Does it have enough engagement points that are there? And does it support the layout, support this new world of hybrid and collaboration? Once you have the personas, you will understand and have a pretty good sense, and you look at future scheduling, you'll have a pretty good sense of how to match up to each and every persona, because this needs flexibility. I visited one of our client locations who actually now the desks they've bought have wheels under them, because they feel that depending on the month, they do feel that there's going to be a different mix of people coming back. And so, towards the quarter end, they expect a lot more salespeople to be coming back to the office, etc. And so moving and making the workspace agile as your workforce becomes agile has become super critical. Persona planning is huge. A lot of companies that have done it have been very successful. So this has been another key learning as well, right? So I talked to a few of the executives, right, that we had in our client base. And so basically I asked them, I said, why do you want your teams to come back? How do you think about this whole hybrid thing? And they said, look, hybrid's great. I mean, it gives the flexibility, but we cannot miss out on the thriving culture in the hybrid world. Okay, so what are people doing around it, right? And it's interesting, right? The data shows us with all the events that companies are organizing, right? And we kind of surveyed them. The number one event I would have thought would be happy hours on a Friday, or it would be lunch events. Actually, no, it's learning workshops. People want to learn. I think they have enough entertainment going on in their life, but at the same time, the in-person events around learning has become just fantastic. And a lot of companies are now investing into bringing in great speakers. And another realization was people said it's not just learning from the speaker, because that we can probably do it on YouTube. It's learning from the people that are in the room. That is huge, right? The questions that people are asking. And so obviously the learning workshops, the in-person town halls, right? Many companies are encouraging their CEO or the senior leadership to do very regular in-person town halls. And obviously the surveys and feedback. The other thing is, many of our clients, they have reconfigured their spaces to create these re-energizing zones. It's areas where people bump into each other. It's areas where people do activities together. I know it consumes space, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think you can kind of give up a bit of the desk space and then, look at some spaces around re-energizing social engagement, right? And of course, the whole thing around new employees or people that have not visited the office in the last 2.5 years, giving them office tours. And it's more to not just show them the physical capability of the office, but it's meet and greet with other employees that have just joined. It's the blending of that. I think that becomes very, very important. And this is a combination of the work that your community manager does, your HR people do, as well as, your physical spaces, right? And your workplace team. I think the role of the community manager sitting inside the office or the floor has become important. A lot of our clients have gone and gotten community managers on board to be able to drive this engagement as they've made changes to their physical spaces, right? What's the no-no in all of this is, and this came out universally, when people come back and they don't know anybody in the office, right? Or they don't have their colleagues, which means that they're sitting in a room all day kind of doing video calls. That's a no-no, because that really gives a bad experience. It kills productivity. It kind of gives them this feeling of loneliness that I was at home and there was nobody, and now I'm back in the work and I still don't have. That's why also, if you have multiple levels of spaces, make sure you try to pack people into few floors before you open up the others, because they get a feeling of kind of community. They get a feeling of togetherness when they walk into floors that they were used to and it's empty, or there are just very few people sitting sporadically. It just gives them the feeling that, hey, why am I back, right? And so you got to think about how you're planning and stacking up those spaces basically as well. But this was another thing around just how companies are working towards creating that thriving culture. And in a hybrid world, you have to double down and put that extra effort, right? So now, another learning was, look, I've got a food app and I have a transport app and I have a booking app and I have all these different apps. Look, employees don't want toil, right? They want their life to be easy. So if I've made a decision to come to work, don't ask me to, do 50,000 things, right? It should all be managed for me in a very easy manner. And so I think the ability to do that easily, the ability to give them everything coming together really nicely, it's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. But at the same time, if you can make that happen, I think that gives them a very seamless experience, right? Think of, and we saw with changes that we were making, that how the adoption rate started to really go up. I showed you some charts. I was a little skeptical myself about thinking of, how are people going to adopt to it? But I think just making the whole experience easy for them, right from giving them the ability to plan ahead in months. And that's why we see, booking or schedules are happening 2 months out, 1.5 months out, right? Because they want to do it one time, boom, they're done. And then after that, it's just, okay, I know who's coming in. I know where I know basically what's going on. I have full control over it. but that's the kind of experience you want to do, right? Talking about making it easy, some of our clients said, listen, I like the check-in because I need to know who's coming in, etc. But at the same time, make it seamless. Maybe they just walk in, they're in a Wi-Fi zone, you're checked in. So think about easy, because whenever we saw too many restrictions, too many rules, we found that the user experience was poor and the adoption was a little bit on the lower side, right? So that becomes super critical. The other thing is making decisions around data. Basically one of the learnings has been that there is nothing as one workplace strategy anymore or policy. It was changing every month, and guess what? It's going to continue to change every month, because as times are evolving, as basically things are, sorry about that, let me just put this. So as times are evolving, right, we're finding that the policies that people have around their workplace is rapidly changing. There is no one size fits all, right? Now, how do you decide what's right? Because every time you put a policy out, you got to see the reaction. You got to see what is happening, right? And of course, one is through just surveys and things like that. But I think more importantly, having all the right data makes all the difference. We had customers who were using the systems and then over time found out that, but they were not looking at the data. The ones that are looking at the data and making the decisions, I think are really starting to see the benefit. This chart here, right, actually shocked me because my team gave it to me today. And, you kind of look at the daily transaction movement. And by the way, this is in hundreds of thousands, right? So you look at that and I'm going like, wow, people are really coming back and they're really doing the things that, help them drive better engagement. But that would help me as a workplace manager or as an HR person be able to set and, look at the workplace policies in a very different manner, right? And it's changing. The workplace policies I may have set up in March or in April are going to be very different in May. First 10 days in June, this hockey stick is just growing, right? Which means it's a very positive indication of what is happening at the workplace. But I think the whole data strategy and the insights that come out of it is becoming super, super critical, right? Look, another thing I must admit is probably I would say 50 to 60% of our customers absolutely have consolidated space. In discussions with them, one of the things they told us was that, look, an easy 25 to 30% cut has been made, space has been consolidated. They were a little skeptical about, well, will people book desks and things like that. Just look at this, right? Jan to May data, absolutely on the upswing, which gives confidence that maybe change with a little bit of change management, you can make this very effective. Because this whole question comes up, right? Oh, okay, we'll squeeze, and then will that work out? It absolutely is working out. I think there's enough data, and I think we looked at hundreds of locations and how teams have managed, right? But then getting into the granular level that, okay, I've cut my space out. Now, how should my space be there? How many rooms do I need? How many 2-seaters, 3-seaters, 5-seaters? Many people they had multiple long rooms, which were 8-seaters, 10-seaters. They're probably keeping 1 or 2 of those, converting them into smaller rooms. Do I really need so many desks? Well, once you get the data, you have the ability to rethink and say, you know what, actually, 70% ratio that I'm using versus the number of employees I'm thinking of coming in should be sufficient. But do I look at things like cafeterias? Do I look at things like zones where people engage, et cetera, et cetera? I think that data-oriented approach really helps. Our sense is, if you got this right, if you were able to monitor this, if you had all the right tools given to your employees and made the experience really easy, you can actually give back about 30% of your space. And that is huge, right? The only thing is, in many instances, many of our clients are now telling their employees to plan for the next 2 to 3 months. They're saying, listen, can you go in and schedule yourself for the next 2 to 3 months? even if you get it wrong, it's okay. It's an indicator. What does it help with? It helps with space planning. It helps with food planning. It helps with facilities planning. And for the companies, they're doing it for the right reasons, because they're saying, hey, can you schedule yourself out because we want to drive more engagement, right? But the net benefit of that is it does help you manage your space much, much better. And this obviously means just dollars to the bottom line, and over time, your ESG scores, right? So in kind of planning what your employees are thinking about, personas, changing data, and of course your workplace, and how are you designing your workplace? Well, what's been the learning around technology? So somebody asked me this question, what does an ideal technology solution look like? Well, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I think what you got to plan is, what are the technology interventions that you are going to be putting at every location in your office, and how are you thinking about it? I love this infographic that the team kind of put together for me, right from planning at the beginning, right? So think of the employee walking in, or a visitor walking in, and how is your new entry going to look like, right? You are going to have visitors coming in, you're going to have employees coming in, but now many of them are operating completely in hybrid, right? So things like people counters, things like making sure the visitor access point is smooth, people don't have to come in, fill big forms, etc. Everything is like, I got a QR code and boom, I'm in, right? And so this whole entry process needs to be planned. The second is, the technology interventions around your cafeteria, food choices. Can people pre-order? Can they do that a day before, as an example? Are you giving them those options? Making sure that you're looking at traffic patterns, because you may have decided I need a 50-seat cafeteria, but is that enough? Because now when people come back, they don't want to have lunch at their desk. They actually want to go to the cafeteria because they do want to meet their colleagues and things like that, right? So the ability to count that and to know what's going on over there becomes huge, right? Your desk layout, how many neighborhoods do I need, etc. But where can technology help me, right? How do people search? How do people, well, what do they want out of their desk, right? Flexibility, types of desks, do I need USB chargers? But I think the whole technology intervention on the desk side has been huge. Whether you book, don't book, it really doesn't matter. But knowing what is happening in each one of these becomes super, super critical, and giving the employees the tools, right? Then thinking about your collaboration zones in terms of your engagement, right? And what are the things that people like? Different areas in the US have different needs and different choices. And that's another thing we are finding, right? So depending on your location, but it's important to have these zones. And last but not the least, the whole thing around collaboration rooms, meeting rooms, what are they going to look like? What technology do you want to put in over there besides the screens, collaboration devices? People are going to the extent of now actually doing room control temperature, looking at air quality, because there is an absolute productivity impact depending on the CO2 level that you've got inside of your rooms. And sometimes, when you're at higher CO2 levels, you will find that the productivity level just starts to come down. So looking at the whole life cycle of what an employee does in a day, the technology interventions at each and every place, and do this step by step, because if you try to do everything together, that's another problem. We're finding that, people get kind of confused. The feedback we get is, a little complicated, but you do it step by step and people say, wow, so I need this. Okay, now I need this. And it comes from the employee pool. But that has also been very significant, right? But think of the whole journey and you will definitely get it right. What's also important is, during the course of this time, right, over the last 2.5 years, look at the amount of tools that were given out to the teams. If you think of your hybrid workplace, if you think about technology, make sure you're bringing them all together, because disparate systems, not interconnected, you lose the data, you lose the user experience, and everything that I just talked about, you won't be able to get the, you won't be able to make strategic decisions, and it won't give you the insight. It'll kill the whole user experience and journey. Is this easy to get to? The answer is no. I don't think so. Is it doable? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for the companies that we work with that really went over and above and really put the effort working through with us, I think has been phenomenal. Their scores on employee happiness index have definitely been better. The kind of daily transactions we see from those customers as a percentage of employees has definitely been much, much higher. So something has to be said about, you make it easy for people, one click, love it. Anything more than that, well, that's a bit of a problem, right? And I think while technology will evolve, I think your own endeavor has to be to simplify it and bring it all together. So I just want to conclude and I want to open it up for questions, right? Transition's a challenge. This, I think, for the workplace industry, whether you're a workplace professional, whether you're in HR, whether you're in management, I think this transition is hard. This transition is definitely challenging. Change management is critical. Many companies will do it differently, right? Some will be like, if you don't come back, some are going to take it one step at a time. The others are going to put plans. And I think from our experience, the one who have really gone deep, put the plans in, looked at the workplace side, looked at the people side, looked at the technology side, blended it all together and built change management using their marketing teams, PR teams. I think that has been very, very successful. The second thing is really to spend time the understanding your employees' habits, their new lifestyle changes, as well as the space needs and how really that comes together. And last but not the least, look, I didn't want to talk about our system or anything like that in this masterclass, but I can leave you with one thought, right? Technology today is super critical. And the ability to spend time on being able to try out technologies and to integrate that user experience, I think is going to make a world of a difference, because I have no doubt that from a space design point of view and from putting in all the right things, that'll go really well. But if you can layer it with well thought through integrated tech, which gives that real easy, seamless experience and understanding what do they need it for, right? I think is very, very critical. A quick poll we did to the employee base, it was, well, what's the one thing that you love, right, about the technology? The one thing. And I think the largest percentage came back was, I just want to know who else is coming in so I can plan my time better. I'm commuting 50, 60 miles to come in. But it's important for me that that day I don't come back not having met the people that I like to work with. We're all human beings. I think these things are important for us. And that's where I want to end off at this stage. And I'd love to, Jason, maybe get your perspective as well before we open it up for questions.
Yeah, Dinesh, I appreciate that. And I think the more we do these master classes, the more we keep learning about, especially the questions that we get in the industries that we are in. But, I think I'll just add that, just adding to Dinesh's thought on transitions are challenging. The larger companies that we work with, we're seeing that their goals and that their project change so vastly from the start to the end, that there's so many different inputs that go in, and there's so many different departments within the organization in different regions who have their ideas. So I think the biggest learning is that as an organization, you really have to approach this as a collaboration, because different positions and different people, as Dinesh showed you in the presentation, there are different needs for all of us. The senior level guy needs more transparency of who he's working for. He needs to see where they are and what they're doing. The mid-level person is responsible for productivity of those newer workers. And then those newer workers need to have their input on how they want to enter the office and how they see the office being. And I think the biggest thing that I tell customers is the best thing that you can do for your hybrid project and your implementation is get this feedback early in the project, so that when we get to the stage of implementation, there's no questions as how you're going to implement and how you're going to roll it out.
Absolutely amazing.
Thanks.
And
you can hand over questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jason, quick question from my end, because as you speak about obviously being able to tailor each project, right, that you're handling, when it comes to tailoring different locations, is that something that you also see in bigger companies and enterprise companies?
Yeah. So the biggest learning on that side of the spectrum that we have is that one company is not a one solution fits all for that one company. You might have a location in Europe that wants it a certain way. You might have a location in the US that wants it a certain way. And I think that having a solutions or technology that makes that very, very readily available for each location is very important to have a successful rollout.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, that's one of the things that we're really seeing, especially coming from all the enterprise deals that we've dealt with in the past. But now open to questions. Please, everybody, feel free to continue to keep them pouring in. We're excited to answer all of these questions for you. First question that we wanted to ask, you've talked about the employee experience. How can I help my workplace team manage the fluid situation with so many data points?
Yeah. So I think that's great, right? And you're absolutely right. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I'll give more reports and more reports. The whole thing is about having one strategic dashboard, right? At the end of the day, you have to figure out through different data sources how that collates into one single sort of dashboard that gives you a view of, you know, what are the personas, how many people are coming back, what's the space utilization looking like, you know, even drilling it down to individual employees, right? I think that becomes hugely important, and that's the only way, right? And it has to be a single source, right? We do, of course, you know, you can't directly have everything on one, but the ability to kind of have as much of data as possible on a single source, that makes it much, much easier. The same thing from an employee perspective. I think, you know, like I mentioned, 9 different apps. I mean, we have a customer, I visited them in Chicago, and, you know, they have taken bookings and all the community engagement and the nearby transit screens and the offers for all the companies around the precinct and the events, all into one single application. From an employee point of view, they open it up, they got everything they need. That's huge, because that helps them, and to the organization, they kind of get to see all the data on a single dashboard. So that if it's any fluid situation, you see all the data and you kind of manage it from there.
Awesome. Awesome. And another question that we received as well is, when it comes to the typical journey, right, of a client, and I know, Jason, you spoke a little bit about this as well. What is your client's roadmap to actually adopting such a technology?
Yeah, so kind of like Dinesh had said earlier in the presentation, I think that the roadmap really starts with making sure you have the right information about the technologies that you're viewing. And it's important that an organization get a feel for that technology and try that technology. And I know Dinesh has said this before, that, you know, on the sales side, we don't like POCs, we don't like proof of concepts, but it's very important that an organization design a proof of concept plan to really question the employees and survey the employees, because as much as we or organizations want to push out technologies and programs, it's important that the organization understands what they're really getting and that it works for them. And I think that's the biggest tell of a successful rollout, is knowing that it works already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. And Dinesh, I know I'm going to kind of push this towards you now. I know we see this a lot when it comes to speaking with clients for the first, second, and third time. It's a very educational process as well from our side, correct? Like it's something that we're actually pushing education when they're coming to us and asking for a solution. We have to educate them as well.
No, absolutely. Look, this is a partnership. There is the whole world of the vendor and company relationship is gone. That exists till the procurement teams get something signed up. But, you know, this is a partnership. And that's why I always encourage, right? I said, do try it out, put it in, learn, you know, go through that data every week jointly, you know, see the adoption. Because one of the things we do is, I love watching those curves, right? Even if they go down, well, why are they dipping in a particular month? Is there something that is happening there? Is it particular to an organization? I think that partnership is needed, and it's going to last till things settle down, which probably takes 6 months. There'll be a lot of up and down, and then there'll be summer, and then there'll be, you know, basically fall break, etc. But it's important to be able to then also form these little roundtables and user groups, because this year is all about learning, not with theoretical data people looked at last year and just webinars, right? This year is learning about real data and real challenges and real problems, and what are the best practices and how they could be glued basically together. That's what drives a successful implementation. And that's why I just call this a partnership, not just a, you know, kind of a supplier relationship.
Amazing. We have a few more questions. Since people are mainly coming into the office to collaborate, are you finding people are reserving workstations, but then not using them because they're actually in, oh, I think it kind of spread out. They're not using them because they're actually in a collaboration space. Are you guys seeing that trend?
So, it's interesting. We don't know how long they're sitting at the desk, to be really honest with you. But as a percentage, I'll tell you, for every 100 desks that are booked, about 35 people book the rooms, but which means they're inviting multiple people. So our guess is at this point in time, and we got to go granular, but 35% is a huge number because they're engaging the rest of the people coming in, right? It just is driving activity. I would say April was the first month when it really started to pick up. May was huge. June, just the first 10-day data shows that the collaboration space booking is actually, the gap between desk and space is narrowing. So your theory may be right, that when people are coming, they're spending more time in rooms than they are sitting on their own desk. Because the rest of the time, I'm sure when they're at home, that's all they're doing. There are no room here, they're just at their desk finishing off their work, right? Yeah.
Awesome. And another question we got from David is, are people working partial days? And how do you plan for those?
Jason, you want to?
Yeah. Actually, David, that's a great question. And I think that the data that you can pull from a system that isn't rolled out and the analytics that you can get can really help you track that. But I think if you look at how people are booking, many people are trying to collaborate. So when they do have the time to come into the office, they are trying to stay as long as they can to get their things done, to collaborate, to meet with everybody that they have. But also, you need a system that's capable to release desks when people leave, or they can have bookings that are not full day bookings, or a solution where multiple people can engage in the morning and then go on with their day or leave. And I think it's a cultural thing within the organization. It's really seeing how the people are using the office, and it's really understanding the best way for each location or each region for them to use the office. So, and then again, that analytics that you get, it's the key factor in how you manage the office. And we've seen, like Dinesh said, you see changes or drops, you want to know why that's happening. And sometimes that's a really good thing. And again, but we go back to the data, having that data is important.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, right, just to kind of, again, address that particular question, you're absolutely right. People are choosing flexibility, right? And they are scheduling themselves over a much longer period of time than we saw. I think in May, it was in April when we were seeing that people would plan for like 2-3 days out because there was a little bit of uncertainty. That uncertainty has probably reduced. I wouldn't say it's gone. It's reduced, so they feel very comfortable planning themselves a month or 2 months out. And usually it's about 3 days a week.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. That was absolutely amazing. And another question that we had is, how can I manage employee events in a situation where half the employees are in the office and half are virtual?
Yeah. So look, learning opportunities can be managed that way, but we feel that there are events that are best done in a physical location. There are others that are in a hybrid manner. If you encourage too many remote events, it's never going to encourage people to be able to come back. So you have to be able to balance that, right? Clearly learning opportunities, there is a temptation to pull in everybody around, but if you make it that comfortable, and really that's a choice that you need to make. But keeping everything remote just encourages them to sit at home and basically do those, right? I think the others, probably the hybrid model is slightly better, but eventually, at least the clients we talk to, they're really encouraging that there's a whole section of physical only events. You got to come to the office to be able to do it. And most of them are centered around learning opportunities.
Awesome. Another question that we got in. Thank you guys for the questions as well. This has been great. What are some of the key metrics for which we should be collecting data?
So I'll kind of go back a slide here, right, to show you that, right? So I think, getting an organizational view of employee status, like what percentage of our employees are hybrid, how many are remote, or how many really always want to work in the office. I think it begins there. that gives you a really good scope of how you've bucketed that. Within that, being able to define the personas of the ones that are working in hybrid. So you kind of get a general sense of what their needs are when they do come back and which days they prefer. And as they start to book, as they start to schedule, time goes by, I think it gives you a really good sense of what your footfall patterns are going to be and the needs that you have, right? Also drilling it down into a department mode, because, so this was an interesting learning when I spoke to one of the customers. They said some managers are really good at being able to get their teams to work in a true hybrid manner. Some managers, teams are always remote, right? We're finding productivity issues there, burnout issues there, the teamwork is not there. What they're doing is they're picking these best practice managers because they have all the data and actually making them doing training for all the other managers inside of the organization. Because once you had the department or manager level data, I think that becomes very important, right? And then layered on top of that is just all your booking information, right? How many rooms are getting used, what type of seats do people like, etc. I think the combination of the two is what you need for a successful hybrid work model, as opposed to just either employee data or space data. You've got to be able to match that up through the system.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to ask one more question. And we'll push this one to Jason. Jason, how are you seeing enterprise companies that are handling that vacant space, especially Mondays and Fridays, sporadic footfall and things of that nature?
I think going back to the data, it's important to know who's coming in the office and what days they are. And I think the way that most organizations want to manage that is by creating reasons for people to go to the office. So that's using push out and notifications to people about events in the office or about different things going on within the office. And again, the biggest way we see people going back to the office is to collaborate. So that could be a top-down approach, encouraging people to have meetings earlier in the week on Monday and, end of the week meetings, maybe team building events. But I really think that from a regional perspective and from a location perspective, it's really understanding the culture of your office and what drives the people to come to the office. And I think it's pushing out those events and making sure they're aware and making sure that they're actually using the technology that you have rolled out to them, and that will get the people to the office. And then again, we always go back to collaboration. That's what drives people. That's what drives us as human beings to be with each other and to be successful together. So I think it's making sure we harp on that every step of the way.
Really just one thing I want to add to that is one learning that we found was we introduced this whole nudging thing, right? And since then, we definitely saw improvements. And basically what is nudging is very simple. If I'm coming in, I pick the people that I want to nudge that, hey, by the way, you know what? I'm going in on these days and I kind of want to nudge these 5 people. They get notified saying, for example, Willie is going in, or Willie and Jason are going in. And so would you like to kind of plan your day at work? Those nudges really help. Sometimes it's just driven by the system and being, within people and teams. Sometimes the community managers drive those nudges. They look at the data and they say, you know what? I got this group of people. They have been coming in maybe once a week. Can I nudge them like on a Thursday and say, hey, by the way, tomorrow's Friday. We know footfall is going to be low. We're planning this learning opportunity at 3:30 in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Would you like to kind of come in? Because they usually do attend those. I think nudges can be massive. You've got to have a plan around it. Technology is not a limitation anymore.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you, guys. I mean, this has been by far the best masterclass and so educational. I'm sure for all the guests that have been here with us today, but also for myself included. I mean, it's just such an honor to be around 2 of the most impressive minds in this space. And we just continue to learn, right? We're continuing to do research, continue to travel around the world, and essentially, obviously the US as well. But I really want to thank Dinesh and Jason for taking the time to join us on this masterclass and really putting a lot of effort into pushing forward the environment of hybrid space, because it's something that is really at the forefront of technology in this space. And just to kind of reiterate a few things that I learned, especially being able to host this event, was three of the key things that we're seeing is basically simplicity, flexibility, and unity, right? And I think those are things that we continue to hear throughout this presentation, and continue to push out that type of knowledge to other executives and other teams and other companies, that as long as you have those things, you're going to continue to attract more and more of your employees back into the office place, and continue to be obviously an attractive place to work, right? So again, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank everyone who logged in and joined us in this great event. We'll continue to push out information to everybody who joined today as soon as this is over. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our information is obviously below the invitation link. So feel free to ask us as many questions, set up any times to meet. We love to take you guys through anything that you might have not picked up during this presentation or might have missed. That's what we're here for, and we're excited to continue this relationship.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and absolutely would love to engage further. So thank you, Billy. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, bro.
Good luck.
Of course. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.